Hello and welcome to another cup of coffee with me, Sandy. Today's program is slightly different in as much as I am doing the opening from my studio, but the actual program was recorded in the Yusuf Hamid Center at Cudeca, a new building in Benalmádena. The program was recorded there in 3 sections, and today I have taken the one section, which is the interview I did with Dr. Marisa Martín, who is the CEO of Cudeca, and she started Cudeca with the late Joan Hunt, Susan Hanna, and I am going to interview her and hear about how it all started. So this is what you're going to hear in the actual program that was recorded a couple of weeks ago. It has been shown fully on My Cup of Coffee, but I felt that I would like to have Dr. Marisa Martín's interview again to be shown, because it has come such a long way, and now it is the Children's Hospice, the first ever hospice for children in Spain. And that is Cudeca's Palliative Care Children's Hospice. And now sit back and listen to the story of Cudeca. If you didn't know it before, you're certainly going to know it now. And let Dr. Marisa Martín tell you all about it. But I will be asking her questions as well. I hope that you learn, listen, and enjoy and feel proud of what has been achieved on this coast and in Andalusia. And this is the first children's hospice in Spain. And now on to the recording that was made a few weeks ago. I usually leave things, the good things, to the last, and this is the best thing. I have left the best person for this last cup of coffee, and this is, I call you my friend, Dr. Marisa Martín. Hello, and how are you?
Hello, Sandy. Well, I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Gosh, do you realize it is 30 years since we first met, when Cudeca actually started? Joan Hunt, Susan Hanna, and yourself. We were standing in a kitchen that had no furniture, nothing. It was an empty building, and look where you have come over the 30 years. You've cared for people, you've looked after people, you've given them dignity, you've helped families. Why don't we go back before we tell everybody else about the new project that we are launching? But let's go back 30 years, because there is a different generation, and also there are people from abroad who don't know Cudeca, the hospice, the wonderful hospice in Benalmádena. Give me a little potted history about Cudeca, how it started.
Well, you know the story very well, don't you, Sandy? Actually, I was thinking about this morning, just really recapping on the figure and the personality of Joan Hunt. Joan was an incredible lady. She became, from not having any studies, to be one of the directives in a great big company in UK, and then she retired, early retirement, here on the Costa del Sol. And I met her when her husband had cancer and was terminally ill, in a little palliative care unit that had just started in 1990. And after caring for her husband, Joan was very touched with the experience of coming from a big hospital, acute hospital, very active, into this little, very poor starting unit, but with palliative care philosophy and with that vision of trying to care for the patient and the family as a whole, and not only the symptoms, but all the other needs and problems that this illness can cause, especially emotionally, spiritually, socially. So she was very touched. She always talked about it as the dramatic change from one place to the other. And after being touched, as all compassionate people do, instead of just thinking, okay, this has been nice, she wanted to do action, she wanted to do something to make anybody else on the Costa del Sol or where she lived have access to this type of care. And you couldn't say no to Joan Hunt. So she came back to the hospice and to the little palliative care unit in the hospital and said, I'm thinking that I want to start a hospice in Malaga. And you know this story. I always tell everybody that I said that's impossible. But Joan had great faith in people, and I think that's one of her biggest values. She really was confident that why not? People are generous, people are compassionate too, people care for their families, for their friends. So it was a matter of getting the right project and getting the right story out. And that's how we began. She said, I'm going to do it, are you going to come with me? And that's how we began 30 years ago, from nothing. Just a lady in her early 60s, not knowing the language, not rich.
She was a foreigner.
Yeah, she was a foreigner.
We talk
that's
about
true.
foreigners. She was an actual foreigner that didn't speak any Spanish.
That's right.
Didn't know anything about Malaga, really.
That's right.
Didn't know how people would respond, but she believed. She had such a strong belief in her dream, what she wanted to do, and how she wanted to do it.
And she was confident, very confident, and she inspired you with that confidence. So she says, it happens in UK, why can't it happen here? There's no difference between people, Marisa. So
that's true. That's true.
And that's how we began.
And it was because of the sponsorship of people here, mainly the British people to begin with.
That's right.
And it was coffee mornings, it was parties, it was any way to raise a little bit of money at a time. And then, of course, people started to hear about it, and they also then began to hear the word Cudeca.
That's right.
And
it was very early days. We're talking about 1992.
Yes.
When we were constituted. 1991, I cared for Fred Hunt. And cancer was a taboo word here, and nobody knew what palliative care actually was. So it was very difficult, not only to talk about palliative care, but to talk about hospice care. So as you say, it was really the English-speaking community living here in Malaga that really made the cause. They really went with Joan Hunt, and we began fundraising in 92, and only 2 years after, we were contracting our first home care team. So that's incredible.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
That doesn't happen anywhere else.
No.
Because it takes years to get people really together and to get things going. She got it done with you, with Susan, and I'm sure with a team of people that you brought in. And the 30 years have just disappeared, but in the meantime, you've enabled people to leave this world being cared for with love, dignity, and helping their families, and also psychologically, which plays a very big part in an illness, and certainly something like cancer.
A huge part.
Now
Sandy.
we say the word cancer. In those days, it was called the big C.
That's right.
Which was such an ugly, I think, terminology, but that it was under the counter.
Here in Spain, they would say a serious illness, but they wouldn't say the word cancer. So, yeah, it's been taboo for a long, long time. And now, well, I think people, if you're asked today, if you have cancer, would you like to know? The majority of us would say, I want to know I want to know anything about myself. If I'm ill, I want to know. But in those days, the doctors, the families decided that we had to protect the patient, right, and not tell him or not tell her. So it was quite a difficult situation to handle, because we only have patients that get worse and worse.
Sure.
So it was difficult times. Nowadays, people are more have more autonomy in a way, and have a right to know, and they ask for their rights, right? So I think it's more face-to-face situation of the illness. But well, Joan was that way too. I mean, the name of Cudeca, I was a bit nervous about putting the word cancer in the name. And she says, come on, Marisa, if we're going to talk about caring for people with cancer, we have to tell the people what we're doing. So she was, straight. She was
spot on.
That's right.
She called a spade a spade. There was nothing more than that.
No.
What she wanted, she got, and she found a way of getting it. And now 30 years have gone, and we have got this wonderful hospice going where you care for people constantly, day by day. And you have progressed to even further. And this is what this program really is about today. It is the new project, a very big one. And this is the last wish of Joan Hunt. Her dream, her last dream before she left us, was that children were involved in palliative care, that there would be a home for them. And tell me how that home is going to be.
Well, you've said it very nicely. Joan was always thinking ahead of us, right? As you said, after 30 years, we have now the hospice with an inpatient unit with 10 beds. We have home care teams, 7 home care teams. Right now, the teams can be caring for an average of 500 patients at home. Wow. And we have our daycare centre. So that was the project. Many people would go to Joan, just going back to the 30 years, and said, "Oh, Joan, I'm sure you couldn't imagine this dream come true." And she would inside think, "What you say? What you're saying? This is exactly what we wanted to do, right?" So this is what we want to redo again for children, in a way. It's like doing a little new hospice project just for children. So we want everything again to be there for them. We want an inpatient unit, which is only Joan's house. I mean, not only, it's going to be a very special place. Because Joan, in her last 7-8 years, she was having many mobility problems. So she couldn't drive, and we really wanted to care for her and for her to be in a safe place. And of course, she wanted to keep an eye on us. So
That's for sure.
That's for sure. And on Cudeca.
In a nice way.
And so finally she sold her house, and with her own resources she built this little house at the end of our inpatient unit, because there was a piece of land there that was perfect for that. But she only built it with one condition, and it was that when she was not there, when she died, that we would use it to keep on caring, to keep on, achieving our mission. And we both thought that it would be perfect for children. So we talked about this many times, and she was very happy to know that that was going to happen. So she's not here for now more than a year, and we started the project. We started our 1 in a Million campaign, and we started to find the ways to really, going back in history 30 years and beginning a little new hospice. So the hospice, or the children's hospice, is going to have Joan's house as the inpatient unit. Only 1 bed. It's not very normal that children die. That's something very good that we have in comparison to adults. But there are many, many children with illness that will not be cured, and at some stage they will die. So we want to have the house there for respite care, for children that are in their last days or weeks, or for a symptom control, something that's not controlled at home. So that will be what the purpose of the house, a very special house. And I always say we don't need it to be Disneyland, like we have our cups of teas. It will have many things like any house that has children. Yes. It will have toys, but it needs to feel like a home. That's what we want to achieve with the house. It needs to be modern, it needs to be very informatically connected to the hospice. We need the nurses' station to be constantly in contact with the house, but it needs to feel like a home. That's what we're looking for. And of course there will be a home care team, a specialized pediatric doctor that I think you've just met.
Correct.
And she will be in charge of leading her team. And the same as with adults, she'll have the nurses, the psychologist, social worker, physiotherapist, occupational therapist. We want to have art therapist, music therapist, play therapist. You have play therapist.
Wow.
And we want to have all these types of clowns or whatever, will help the child and the family, especially the family and the brothers and sisters, the siblings, to cope with the situation. At the end, they all have to learn to cope. We can't.
You can't hide it.
No,
it's there.
It's their reality.
Sure.
So the more they can cope with it emotionally, or in the type of care the child needs, the more quality of life they will all have, and
Sure.
that's important for us. And when times get rough, we'll be there, and when times are good, we'll be there. So I think that's the project, and of course the daycare centre. Sorry, I forgot. The same as in adults, we want to have a very special daycare centre, where the children can come perhaps in the afternoons after. Some go to school, some don't, but we'll see if we're going to do it in morning or afternoons, or perhaps morning and afternoons. So the child comes and has different therapies, not medication, different therapies with other children.
Yes.
And they can...
Interacting.
That's right, socialise and
Yes.
feel that they're not so unique. There's more people like them, and sometimes that helps, and just sharing things. And the same with the parents. We'll have, groups of parents to be talking with the doctors and nurses. The psychologists will work with them a lot. And hopefully, we will be able to keep the child and the family at home mainly. That's our objective, because that's the objective of nearly all the families. But and try that when the end comes, that it's where the family really feels they want to be.
Sure.
Many children, unfortunately, up to now, when no palliative care was there available for them, ended up in an emergency service in a intensive care unit, dying alone.
Awful.
I've got personal experience about that. So that's what we want to. That's our main objectives: quality of life, dignity, a lot of life. We want to add life to days. That's our theme, our logo.
Yeah.
And especially when the time comes, we want to be with dignity and peace, and where the family wants it to be.
Sure.
Right? It can be in the hospice, it can be at home.
Now, your 1 in a Million campaign, how do you feel? What has that done for you personally?
Well, I feel overwhelmed. It's been incredible, Sandy, incredible. Because we were quite nervous, I must say, to say that we wanted to raise €1 million. It was a bit pretentious, we thought.
Putting the name Joan Hunt in front of it, it's never going to be pretentious. It'll happen.
Yes, we knew that, but I must say it was Martín Nathan from TRE who really did it all. He was determined too, in a way, like Joan. And he called us with the name of the campaign. I think you could do the campaign called 1 in a Million, because Joan was 1 in a million.
Absolutely.
And we said, that sounds great. Thank you, Martín. Let's talk about this, blah, blah, blah. And then we were talking about how much it was going to cost us to run what we thought we could achieve for the Children's Hospice in the first 4 years. And then we wanted to achieve that amount to give security to the project. We don't want to begin a project and then next year say we don't have the funds, right? And that's the way Joan told us to do things, by the way. So when we opened the inpatient unit because we began with home care in 1994, then we came to the centre in the year 2000, and we opened daycare. And inpatient unit was the last, and we opened it in 2005. But we had to have enough money in the bank to run 3 years of the hospice. That's how we do things in Cudeca. That's how Joan told us. So we had the same philosophy with the Children's Hospice. We had to have enough money to run whatever for 4 years. And we were thinking about a very small amount. And so when we did all the counting of it, it was nearly €1 million, more or less €1 million. So,
and that would be for 3 years?
Yeah, that's right, for 4 years.
For 4 years. Okay.
So Martín said that we had to raise €1 million. And we said, well, that's quite a lot of money. He said, you have to go for it. It's Joan's memory. And I think that gave us a lot of strength. To think, how would Joan do this? And she would go for it. She would go for it.
She would find a way.
That's right. So we thought, well, we have to honour her memory, and we have to do it her way. That's what she's taught us.
And you've raised the $1 million?
We've raised the $1 million.
And how did you raise the $1 million?
Well, with a lot of support, I must say. as you know, first the campaign managed to achieve 400,000 euros, which was
Incredible.
incredible. And I must say there, 300,000 euros came directly from people giving a small donation, not a huge donation. And I'm very proud of the team of Cudeca, because we did our personal, challenge with 1 in a million. And between all of us, we were raised 50,000 euros. So that was a great achievement too. That's the level of commitment of the people that we have here. So very proud of that, Sandy. And then we have a very special friend of Cudeca. It's Dr. Yusuf Hamid. He came to us 10 years ago. And as he always says, it was love at first sight with Joan Hunt.
Yes.
And with the project itself, but especially with Joan. They became very, very close friends. And Dr. Yusuf Hamid is a very humble and very caring person. And his wife, Farida, they're both very committed people. And he had a personal commitment with palliative care, actually. He has a hospice like ours in India, in Pune, which is like 4 times ours. I mean, it's a huge hospice, which he totally supports, right? It's run by his donation annually, and they can do whatever they want. I mean, they do training, they do research, they care for people in the hospice, they care for people at home. Now they're doing palliative care for children within the hospitals. So, yes, he's very, very active and very intelligent man.
An amazing man.
An amazing man. So
in many, many ways.
Oh, we're going to say in all the ways he is. He's devoted now and connected to Cudeca. I think that Joan was our angel here. Now we have her in heaven. But before she left us, she left another angel.
Absolutely.
And he's committed himself to Cudeca. He tells me this every time I see him. Marisa, if you need anything, we're here for you. And when we're not here, his niece and his family that are the ones that are going to care for his great legacy will be caring for you too. So that's the level of humanity of Dr. Yusuf Hamid and Farida. And he came to one of our presentations of 1 in a million, and he said he was given straightforwardly 100,000 euros to the 1 in a million campaign. So that's the way we got to 400,000 euros, and we were very happy with that one. But then he decided in another big presentation we had of this building to top it up to whatever was missing for that €1 million. So that's the way we really achieved the €1 million. It's incredible. He's an incredible man and devoted, as I say, to Cudeca and what we do.
Yeah. And we are sitting in the library, which is named Farida Hamid Library. So their names are all over because they belong to Cudeca.
They are part of Cudeca, it's right.
They really, really are. Thank you, dear Lord, for them, really. And Joan, I am sure that you are smiling from up there because you're watching everything happen.
Well, it's what she said. It's what she believed in from the beginning.
Yes.
There are incredible people in this world.
Yeah.
And she was confident. And she wasn't confident in big donors, I must say. She was confident more in what Cudeca has been built on, which is little donations from many, many, many people. Whatever everybody can do. It's not a matter of giving a lot. It's a matter of giving what you really can.
What you can afford.
Afford from your heart.
Yeah.
And really feeling part of the project. It's not to give a donation and go away. We need people to really believe in what we're doing and be part of it, be responsible with us of it.
If I'm not wrong, I think that if people gave 250 euros when the new building is constructed, there will be little plaques with their names on, as you did with the actual Cudeca.
That's right.
Everybody has got plaques on the walls of their names and their loved ones. so you again will be following what you did 30 years ago.
That's right. And it has a special meaning this time because many of the children that we're going to care for, we're already caring for, because we've been caring for children now for 10 years, really. It's not something new. It's just that we're going to do it specially now.
And in a modern way as well, today's way.
That's right. And with the resources that it needs. But many of these children have very rare diseases, illnesses, and they feel very abandoned by society, by the health system, and the families have to fight a lot to get the support they need, and sometimes they need very specialized support. They have children with machines to be able to breathe, or they have children with intravenous type of medication, and they're at home, and children that nearly nobody but the mum and dad can be with, because they're the ones that know how to care for that child. So that wall with all the names is a way of saying them, you are important.
Absolutely.
We do care.
Yeah.
So that's what it means.
How do you feel? What is your next step? Because Joan has been in your life for so many years that you now think the way Joan does,
right.
and you must have something tucked away before we end this to give me a little snippet of what's next.
Well, I think we've got enough on our plate, Sandy, I must say, because to set up the Children's Hospice is very, very important for us, and especially that daycare centre. There are no daycare centres like Cudeca's one in Spain, and I think it gives so much quality of life to people that I'm really determined to have a very important and special daycare centre. This building that we're sitting in is another huge project, I must say. We really want to spread the word about palliative care in 3 ways. One, that people understand that this is a need, this is a right, and they have to support it, because if not, not only us, I mean, in the whole Spain, we have palliative care services from the hospitals, but we're way under the need. We need much more resources. There has to be psychologists in the team, physiotherapists in the team. So we really want to advocacy, that word, to defend the need for palliative care from this institute. Of course, we want to do a lot of training, and our target is especially Latin America because of the language. They like to come to Spain to train, and we have everything together. We have the training centre and all the care, and they have different kinds of care, as I said, inpatient, day care, home care. They have psychologists, physio. So it's a very special place to learn. And we talk about our special kind of caring. Well, there's a special kind of teaching and researching and sharing, which is the Cudeca model too. So we really want to put this centre as a reference internationally for training. And research. When you talk about research, it seems like all the research in our area should be for treating cancer, which of course is a must, and it has to be. But we also need to research in palliative care. We're a very, very new discipline, only 30 years in Spain and nearly 60 in UK, but still a very, very young medical discipline. And we have to learn more about pain, and we have to learn more about appetite and fatigue, and also the emotional side, how to care for, how to respect people, how to empower them in these last days. You know, there's millions of little things that can make your day, or, you know, whoever's day, special and better. And we want to know about those details. We want to go right down to the details and research on them, right? We have a lady in the inpatient unit that can't swallow anything, right? So she has her nutrition and she can live nicely, but she can't taste food. And Hanna, our pediatrician, says, well, there's a machine that makes it, I don't know, it makes food like air, and then you could put it in your mouth and at least you taste it. So
Really?
Really. And it was Anna, the pediatrician, that brought this idea to us. So there's many things that are small things that make a big difference, and we want to be there.
Okay. You're going to be there with the new Cudeca Cancer Hospice for Children, which is, I believe, the first one in Spain. I know that there are other places that look after children, but it's not a hospice.
That's right.
And this is the difference. It's a Cudeca Hospice for Children.
Of course, and it's so important, the extra that hospice bring in.
Yeah.
Because they bring in the community, they bring in volunteers, they bring in an environment which is not hospital, it's not medicalized, and they bring in
Feeling.
That's right. I'm not saying that you don't have the best teams in the hospitals too, because I began there. I'm a hospital doctor of palliative care unit, and I worked there for many, many years, nearly 20 years before I left everything to come to Cudeca. But it's a special environment, and the environment itself is also helpful. It's therapeutical too. So it's important to have the hospices. It has something special that hospitals will never have, I'm afraid.
At this stage, I want to say, let's raise our cups of coffee or tea. And this is to thank you, Dr. Marisa Martin, CEO of Cudeca, my friend, many people's friends, and here is to bless the new centre that is going to be opening very soon.
Thank you, Sandy.
Take care. God bless. And thank you for your time and certainly for your energy.
Well, it's like a child for me. It's one of my child's
It is your
children.
baby.
That's right, it's my baby. So thank you, Sandy.
Let's drink to that.
Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye.